Mark here again, folks, cooking books. Y'all know how to cook the books and bring the info. So I've been chopping it up in the kitchen for the last 4 or 5 hours, and I got some good stuff. So if you watch any of my videos, my last couple of videos, you know I'm discussing the genetic code and still studying the genetic code, and that's led me to so many other things: binary code, source code, and machine code. And, you know, all this stuff is very fascinating. It's fascinating stuff. What I want to share with you guys today, particularly, I want to continue talking about deoxyribonucleic acids, which is DNA. What's interesting, what I find interesting about DNA, remember, during cell division, you have two types, meiosis and mitosis. Mitosis is for cell repair, growth, and cellular support. Whereas mitosis is for the production of gametes. Gametes are sexually reproductive cells, which are the sperm and the eggs. Now, what's interesting, here's what's interesting. When cells divide, right, we have the end result that's called daughter cells. And the daughter cells inherit in meiosis, they inherit not the exact amount of chromosomes from the parents, and they're called, in mitosis, they're called diploid because they're the exact copies of their parent cells. But during meiosis, they're called haploids because they have one set of chromosomes. That's why each parent contributes one gene to a child or the offspring. But what's interesting about that is this: we got to, you know, when cells divide, we talk about the duplication or replication. The cell makes a copy of its DNA, and in the form of RNA, and then the RNA is transcribed, right? It goes through transcription. No, RNA goes through translation, mRNA goes through translation. The RNA is transcribed from the DNA, but once the RNA is transcribed, it goes through translation. But here's what's interesting, right? Your DNA carries the information. That information is the technology, information technology, right? That creates all of us, right? But what that's very generic. Everyone knows that. That's nothing new. But what I'm finding that what's fascinating is this: when I contribute a gene and my spouse contributes a gene to the offspring, that offspring, which are you and I, because our parents gave birth to us, gave birth to me, gave birth to you. So we as offspring, we have the same DNA, the genes. Let's not focus on the DNA. We have the information. This is what's interesting. The information that I possess in my genes, in my DNA, is the same information that was passed from my parents. Just like in the cells, in the cell cycle, in both mitosis and meiosis, when at the end of the cycle, you have what's called daughter cells, and you have 2 daughter cells as a result of mitosis and 4 daughter cells as a result of meiosis. And like I said, in mitosis, the 2 cells are exact copies or replicas of the parent cells, whereas in meiosis, they're diploid. They're not exact copies, but they do contain the same information. However, as a result of what's called genetic recombination or crossing over, the information in meiosis, in the daughter cells in meiosis, is still the same as the parent cells, but it's recombined. It's considered, think of it like a deck of cards. The easiest way I can explain it to you is think of a deck of cards. If you shuffle those cards up, you're going to have the same cards. You're always going to have the same suits, clubs, hearts, diamonds. You're going to have the same cards, but you're just going to have them in different sequences. So you can shuffle the cards up a million times. You're going to always get different sequences. Look, you're going to always have different sequences. However, they'll be the same cards. Well, at the end, the daughter cells for meiosis, it's sort of like that. That's a simple way for me to explain it. Same DNA, same information, just reshuffled and recombined. And that's what adds to diversity. That's why you and I look different. That's why all of us look different. Then every now and then you find people that do look alike. But generally, the diversity is a result of meiosis, not mitosis. But anywho, the point I'm making is this, right? So the information, forget about the biology for a second. Forget about the traits, the what's called the phenotype. The phenotype is everything we can see, the visible. Forget about that. But focus on the information. The information that is passed from your mom, your dad to you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you go back, then that would mean your grandmother, your grandfather, your great grandparents, your great great great. So your ancestors. So the information in you and I today is the information that our ancestors had. So our ancestors have this information that they've passed on throughout the generations and the years that has landed in and resulted in you and I. And when we have our children, that cycle continues. So the question, so the and again, I want to focus on the information because that's what my whole research is about. Information right now, information in our DNA. So the information from our ancestors is passed down to you and I, right? The question is this then: does our DNA communicate with us? That's the question, right? Because it's information. Is your DNA communicating with you right now, today? And we're not aware, we're not conscious of the language of the DNA or the communication of the DNA. And that communication, because it's information handed down from our ancestors, is actually information there to guide us. And this is highly philosophical. A lot of this is just based off my speculative, mindset here. I'm speculating based off research and reading and stuff. I've read none of this anywhere. This is not authenticated anywhere. This is purely speculation based off research. My due diligence, right? So, yeah. So that's the question I found that I'm asking. So if this information is passed down from our ancestors to our parents to us, then then this information is still present in our DNA, and it's up to us to tap into that information, right? Yeah, we have to decode or decipher that information, and everything. Here's a way I think. This is again speculative. Everything has a vibratory nature, right? Everything in the universe vibrates. Everything. You and I are vibratory creatures. We're vibrating. We're mass of proteins that vibrate at frequencies. All of us. So we all emit, and because we vibrate, we're always emitting some form of, we're always emanating some form of frequency or energy, right? So if everything vibrates, that means your DNA is vibrating. Right? Your DNA has a vibratory nature. And if your DNA is vibrating, that means it's giving off a glow. That glow is a light. And if it's vibrating and light is frequency. And put it like this. Here's the way I could put it. A byte on a computer, right? You have what's called a byte and you have bits. A byte is 8 bits, right? 1 bit is the smallest amount of data. I'll say that again. A bit is considered the smallest amount of information, of data. That's what a bit is. And 8 bits make a byte. Think of your DNA having a vibratory nature and transmitting, resonating, energy is light, and light is would be considered. Think of each particle of light as a bit, like a computer has a bit. Think of it as a bit, and each bit is the smallest collection of information. So that would mean if your DNA has a vibratory nature and vibration, by default, vibration creates a glow. A glow is light, and each particle of that light, using an analogy of a bit, then each particle of light would be the smallest quanta of a collection of data, of information. And that information that your DNA is constantly vibrating and emitting and radiating is being absorbed by you and I, because we are we have a, what is it, magnetites in the brain, or the billions of neurons in our brain, we are absorbing that information back into our consciousness because we're vibratory creatures. So we're emitting, we're vibrating, and we're emitting, we're radiating that energy, that field, that's from the DNA, and that information is being reabsorbed into our consciousness. The problem is, though, we're not aware of this and we're not conscious of this. And if we become conscious of this, then our ancestors will be able to speak to us through the DNA that they passed down to our mothers and grandmothers and great grandmothers. And we will then be able to get the guidance that we need and work our way out of the this media that we're in. So yeah, that's the stuff I want to share. I think that's very fascinating stuff. Again, so highly speculative, but I do believe there's some truth in that. I definitely believe there's some truth in that, because DNA, again, looking at the computer is a base 2 system, right? Base 2 system means binary. It's a binary system, ones and zeros, right? And those ones and zeros mask characters, right? Because the ones and zeros represents a value system. Those value systems represents letters and symbols and the words and commas, commands, etc. All the characters on your keyboard, right? So those ones and zeros are tied to value systems. Those value systems, and the value systems, I think they're called ASCII, which is the American Standard ASCII, American Standard, what is it? American Standard Code Information Interchange. Yeah, I believe that's what it's the acronym ASCII, but it's a standard that is used, a standard code that is used, worldwide standard that is used for converting numbers or assigning characters to numbers, right? Assigning characters to numbers, like M would be 77, capital M is 77, and I believe A would be capital A is 64 in binary. But again, that's not even important. What's important is this, that those base 2 systems, those digits, right, represent something else. They have a total different, like you can make a whole world out of just numbers, right? Numbers can be converted to a whole new world, right? You can draw, you can make pixelate, you can do all kind of things on the internet, on your phone, all of it, all of our devices. Everything is based on the base 2 system, which is the binary system. Well, the reason I bring that up is because your DNA is base 4, right? You have 4, instead of 2 digits, it has 4, right? A, T, C, and G. And those 2 are tied to other elements that form codons and so on and so forth. But information, in short, right? It's all tied to other information. So everything is coded, right? And it's interesting because if you break it down and look at it like that, then what I'm saying is 100% true. There's more information than what we see, than what meets the eye. There's so much more to us, so much more potential that we have yet to really exercise and tap into. But here's the thing, we are, the reason why it's so hard for us to see, here's why most of us will never come into this, because we're in an environment that we're constantly being streamed, right? We're being live streamed constantly with what's called information technology, right? People think technology pertains only to like computers or machines. No, technology is anything, any knowledge, any science, any tools, any information that is used by an organism in their culture or in their environment. That's technology. Technology can be anything, information, knowledge that you can use, that organisms use, interact with in their environment. So we're being streamed, right? Live streamed, fed, plugged, implanted our minds. We're being fed so much. We're overwhelmed, not underwhelmed, but overwhelmed, inundated by a constant flow of information technology, constantly being fed, constantly being like I said, live streamed, constant flow. And because most of us will, therefore, because we're constantly being fed, we're obviously the easy explanation is we're being programmed, right? But it's deeper than that, because it not only we're being programmed, but what it's doing to us is that it masks, it veil. Put it like this: genes that are expressed or considered dominant genes are not expressed that are considered recessive genes. So one gene will always be recessive, one will be dominant, and the dominant gene masks the recessive gene. Doesn't mean that the recessive gene is not there. That's why when people say, "Oh, someone in your family might have cancer," it skips a generation. You don't have it, but someone else does. You do have it. It's in your DNA. It's in your body. It's just been masked by a dominant gene that was inherited from either parent. So if there's a dominant gene, it's going to mask the cancer gene, and therefore that's why people say skips a generation. It's just a phrase. It's a word. It's a way of phrasing it. It never skips. It's still there. It's just masked by a dominant gene. Well, I say that as an analogy to say that's how we are. Like our true selves, right? Genes express themselves. Our true expression, which is our tapping into our reservoir of potentialities and manifesting. It's there, but it's masked, right, by the dominant gene. If you get my point. So we're masked. Our true potential is being masked by the dominant live stream, the dominant current, the dominant direction, the dominant zeitgeist. I think that's how you pronounce the word zeitgeist. Zeitgeist, right? Is German for trend, right? What's trending, right? That's why memes. People don't know. Memes are very. I'm not gonna go down that road, but I do another video on memes. What memes are, the spiritualism behind memes, and still so on, the science behind that. But so we're being masked, right? Our true selves are being masked by a false and fictitious ideology, or alter ego, facade, whatever. So just like the gene. So I'm going to continue to study and research this stuff because I think it's fascinating. But in our DNA, there's a tremendous amount of information that if we can unearth this information, it will that information will be processed by the neurons, and it will be resonating throughout our CNS, our central nervous system. It will govern your behavior, your attitude, your efficiency, your effectiveness, your efficacy of all that you do, your productivity. You will be the best, better version of yourself. Everything you do will be just on a whole nother level. You will outstrip your competitors. You will beat out all competition, and you will just be like what you really are, a superhuman. Till next time, peace.